Good afternoon. My name is Tiara Scott, and I am interviewing with Terry Page. It is Thursday, October 28th. We are in conference services at McDaniel College. So, Terry, tell me first, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Frederick County.
Okay. And how long have you lived in Carroll County?
25 years.
Excellent. So tell me about your move to Carroll County.
Actually, I moved to Carroll County from Howard County after spending a number of years living in Baltimore, in the Baltimore City area. So I've sort of almost come full circle because I started out in Frederick County, moved to Baltimore City for a while, then moved to Howard County. Now I'm back in Carroll County, so I'm almost home, so to speak. Frederick County is where I was born and raised.
Wow, you went around. So what was the area like in Carroll County then when you moved here?
It was definitely much more rural. There was a lot of farmland. We didn't have a mall. There were many nice family-owned small businesses here. And it did have an appeal to me for that reason, because of the quaintness of the town, and we also had the opportunity to take advantage of a housing program here, and so that's pretty much what brought us to the county.
Great. Can you recall some of those small businesses?
Yes, I would love to, and I'll comment on one a little bit later on, but one of them was Mather's, which was on Main Street, and that was the great store that you got personal service and the creaky wood floors, and you could buy something as awesome as a crystal bowl for a wedding gift and also a Boy Scout uniform. So yes, that was one of the nice ones. There was also a hardware store in town that I absolutely loved, and it was the kind of place where you could walk in and say, I have this thing in my hand, I don't know what it is, but I need another one. And they would know, oh, that's a whatever, and you'd be just great. And, you know, they'd give it to you, and you'd walk out with your little brown paper bag, and that's what I do miss that. I do.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds interesting. So what did your family do for entertainment during those years in Carroll County? Well,
we took advantage of a lot of the outdoor areas of Carroll County. We would go visit Hoshawa. We would go to Hoshawa Nature Center, which is off of 97. We would go to Piney Run Park. We would go to Union Mills Homestead. We never really engaged in any of the locals, a lot of the real local stuff like the carnivals and things. Ours was more let's explore the county in terms of the rural outdoor area. Gotcha. We did visit, we would go to the movies. There was a movie theater in downtown Westminster that was amazing, and we would go there for movies. Of course, that is now closed. Actually, it's now the Carroll Arts Center, but we went there to see movies. But we really took advantage of a lot of the outdoor stuff.
Great. So, wow, tell me about that movie theater, because
it was small. It's about the size that it was, that it is now. But I think movies were a couple dollars. I think that they were probably, I don't know if they were, when we moved in here, I think they might have been second-run movies or whatever they call that. But it was small, and it was just a nice place to go, you know, during the day, like on a Saturday or a Friday evening.
And it was something that a lot of people did.
Yes, definitely.
Great. Mm-hmm. Cool. And what changes have you seen in the county?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't really feel that I've seen a lot of changes. And maybe I'm just not, you know, I just haven't lived here long enough. But other than, yeah, there has been a lot more development. And as a result of that, we've built more schools. And obviously, then that means there's more population and there's more traffic. But in terms of an urbanized area, I don't see Carroll County as urbanized. I don't see it. That's just me.
And that's important. That's an important perspective. And what is one of the places you can think of, or several places, that used to be in Carroll County but is no longer there, and you had to on?
Yes, I'm going to go back to the hardware store, the local hardware store, which is Smith and Reeve Snyder's, which used to be where I think the new fire hall is in that area, and I just really, I loved going there. There's something that's very appealing about that. about being able to go into a store with a knowledgeable group of individuals who, you know, you don't have to look through aisles and aisles and aisles of things. I mean, these are people that would cut rope for me and cut the chains for me, and I could get the best lumber in town to build whatever project I wanted. It was just the best thing to do. I mean, it was just great to go in there to be able to do that, rather than one of the large stores that we now have where, you know, you don't get the customer service. I mean, most of the people probably don't know your name, where, you know, they got to know your name because you'd go in there a lot and you'd frequent it. So I do miss that. I do.
Wow. So what experiences did you have with the rural Carroll County life before it urbanized?
I'm just going to go back to a statement I made before. I don't feel that Carroll County is urbanized.
Right.
I do not.
And how long have you worked in Carroll County?
About 25 years.
Great. Since you've been here.
Mm-hmm.
And what positions? Tell me about some of them.
For 15 years, I was a preschool teacher at a local daycare center that's still in operation. That is one of the small businesses that is still in operation, a great daycare center. And I also have worked here at the college. So there's the only two jobs that I've had since I've lived in Carroll County.
So tell me about the daycare. What was the name of it?
Little People's Place Child Development Center.
Okay.
They originally started out in the lower level of what was then the JC's building, across from the city Parks and Recreation football and softball field off of Uniontown Road. And then the owner expanded and developed and built a much larger center. And I worked there for 14 and a half years.
And they're still around?
They are still around, which is tremendous. Good people, great business, and great business model, and so they've done extremely well.
Excellent. So tell me about how the social climate in Carroll County has changed as the population has become more diverse.
I really haven't seen a change in the social climate. I don't notice any changes. I don't notice any differences. To me, it's still the same as it was 25 years ago. The only thing I can see where maybe the social focus had changed just a little bit was when we built the mall. So that was kind of a place where people kind of hung out, but the same things that people are going to today are the same things they were going to 25 years ago. And we still have the 4-H fair. But I haven't seen I don't see any changes, but that's just me.
I got you. I got that. Okay, and can you describe your personal experiences during any major national events that occurred while you lived here?
Well, I will say that I'm not pretty crazy about the political climate here. I feel that diverse thinking is not necessarily respected well here in Carroll County. You know, the only other thing that and that's just if you're referring to like a national event, you know, things like elections and things like that, I'm not sure what that question exactly meant, but I'm trying to try to get a pulse on that. And then the other thing is I think that 9/11 seemed to have a very big impact here in the county, just in terms of I remember that day. I remember how the community itself was impacted, and students, and especially here on this campus. I can still remember that day. So I think it was the one single event that I can remember since I've been in the county where I felt like the whole population in some way was affected by that. I hope that answers your question. I'm not really sure.
That's exactly what I was looking for. So what stands out about that day to you? What do you remember?
I think probably what stands out to me the most is my experience here on campus. I just remember at that time I had a different position. I was working in the college activities office, and that area of the Decker College Center seemed to be sort of a central nervous system area for students coming through. And I just remember there were a number of students who had parents that were either in New York. There was one girl in particular whose father was working for the Pentagon, and I remember how hysterical she became, and I remember how we all just sort of took on these roles of being caregivers and nurturers and kind of calming people down. I remember when the campus community came together and we all went to Big Baker Chapel, and we sort of celebrated who we are as people, and sort of had our resolve at that point to not let our opinions about humanity in general be swayed one way or another. It was just, for a bad day, you walked away with a good feeling.
Yep.
Yes, maybe that answers what
yes,
you're looking
that is
for.
excellent. I can kind of agree and give my input that I remember 9/11. I wasn't here in Carroll County, but the one thing that sticks out is how it kind of unified us. It was like, for that instance, people didn't really care about the differences so much.
Right.
And so I totally understand where you're coming from. And so now tell me about any important issues or difficulties that you can recall having since you've been in Carroll County.
I really haven't had any,
Challenges.
no, I've not had any personal challenges here in the county.
Excellent. And describe the most significant change that you've seen over the years. I know you said you don't think it's really urbanized, so are there any significant changes that you can recognize?
Not really on any levels, not on any political levels, not on any social levels. I think that there has been a little, some movement toward, some economic development here in the county, but other than more roads and more houses, I don't really see any significant changes.
Right. So do you think the more roads and more buildings, do you think that really hasn't changed life here in Carroll County?
No, other than the impact on the infrastructure, no. And by that I'm talking about, probably more roads now need to be repaired, more water and sewer systems need to be built, and that kind of thing. But I don't see that as an urbanization, if you will, issue, or I don't see that way.
Gotcha. So, what do you what would you tell a friend who had never been to Carroll County about this community?
I would tell them that it's a great place to raise a family, but there's not much of a cultural base here. The town shuts down pretty early. There's not enough to do, and they need to study a planning model, say someplace like Frederick or even Winchester, Virginia, which in some of their kind of city area they've turned into a walking community where the cars park on sort of the side streets, and there's no traffic through the main artery of the town, and things stay open a little bit later, and there's more to do. I just spent the weekend in Annapolis, going into Eastport and places like that where like it's 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and there's just this huge amount of nightlife. And in Carroll County, other than a few things that stay open, it just kind of shuts down and sort of rolls its sidewalks up. So other than that, I think it's a fine place. They have excellent schools here. Both of my sons were educated here in the county, and I feel that they got a very good education. But that's really all I would have to say.
Great. And speaking of your children, can you tell me anything about what you perceive their experience here to be?
Well, I can tell you that I think in terms of what they got education-wise was very, very good. I don't think that we engaged in most of the traditional social things of Carroll County. Like, my children are in their 20s and they never went to a Carroll County carnival. I think they went to the 4-H fair probably by me forcing them to go. As they got older, a lot of their activities seemed to be out of the county because there were other things going on that appealed to them more. I can tell you that I have a son that lives in Baltimore City who has no desire to move back to Carroll County, and I have a son who is in college in Richmond who also does not want to return to Carroll County. He kind of likes that more urban lifestyle, and so does my older son, and so they probably will not come back here to live, at least at this point. It wasn't a bad experience. I just don't think it was as enriching for them, maybe, or they're just not as parochial in their thinking about the way they want to live.
That's an interesting point, because it kind of agrees with the statement that you say you don't really feel it's urbanized here. You know, your kids don't really perceive this as an urbanized town.
That is correct. They do not.
That is excellent. So, is there anything that I haven't touched on that you can just share with me about this community?
I can tell you this. I will not retire here. I will not make Carroll County my permanent home. I feel that I have other places to explore and enjoy. I feel like, in terms of my personal lifestyle, I want a little more diversity in my lifestyle, and I don't think that I'm getting that in Carroll County. I feel like I want to explore places that have a little more of a cultural base, more intergenerational folks, not just people my age, not just people younger than me, not people of a certain class. I just want to be able to live in a differently, I think retire in a place where there's a little more diversity. So, but I have enjoyed living here. I've made a lot of friends here, but I probably will not retire here.
Great, that is excellent. I just appreciate all your comments and all your feedback. I can sense that you are a person who appreciates culture and diversity and interactions with different types of people and culture, so I get that from you. And once again, I just wanted to thank you because you provided some great information.
Well, great. Thank you. And it was very nice to meet you, and I hope you'll let us know how your study goes.
Of course.
Thanks.
And that concludes.